Hello, I'm Charis Sykesud and this is Freelance Life with Strings Attached. As I near the end of my masters, I want to find out how best to be prepared to enter into the world of a freelance musician. I thought that a great way to do this would be by speaking with some established professionals about their experiences. I would like to thank Matthew Bethel, Zoe Beers, Sarah Brandwood Spencer, Cheryl Law and Cecily Ward for so generously sharing words of advice and encouragement in our conversations. As well as discussing the pros and cons of being a freelancer as opposed to being employed, we talked about orchestral work and auditions, money matters, non-playing jobs, and the importance of self-worth. Thank you for watching, and I hope you find what follows as helpful as I have. Do you prefer freelancing or being employed?
I definitely prefer freelancing.
Okay.
But because it gives you more control. You know, if you want to take that 2 weeks off in the summer to go and do something else, or if you need to give yourself a break, you have that control. When you're in a full-time job, you have to do their schedule to a certain point. I mean, you can take a certain amount of time off and you can take unpaid leave, but there's a limit to how much you can do. And certainly the Halle schedule was so tough. It's really, really tough. And there were so many out-of-town concerts every week. You're quite often doing 3 sessions Sundays, and weekends, working weekends. And certainly, you don't have to think about this at the moment, but when you have children, you never see them.
And what are some of the benefits of being a freelancer?
I've had a taste of both worlds. So I've been fully freelance. Okay. I've been also, I'm so sorry, something's just fallen over my feet. Fully freelance. I've been sort of what I call sort of semi-freelance. So I've always worked for myself, but I've been a member of various orchestras, and now I'm the least freelance I've ever been, which is sort of, you know, quite new to me. But at the same time, I feel like I realize it's really uncertain and difficult times for freelancers right now, and that's maybe it doesn't feel like there's an end in sight to that at the moment. A lot of things, but I would just like to sort of speak sort of generally, you know, past and hopefully future, and how that might play out, which I think is one of the enormous benefits of being freelance, which are, I think, if you can find the power to say no, and the power to know your own value, and the power to understand for yourself what makes a balanced career and a balanced life, because that's actually the most important thing, a balanced lifestyle, then as a freelancer, I think you have far more potential to realize your personal goals as a musician, or as a person, as a human, and as I think to have a sort of a fully enriched life as a musician. It's probably scarier but easier to do that as a freelancer. I'm not saying you can't do that as a fully employed orchestral musician, or working in the arts in any other way. You do come up against a different set of issues. So you know, you may have the financial security, but you have other obligations.
If you get established enough and you have your different places you can go to have work, and you have enough of it, I think the variety is very healthy. I think being able to teach and play, I think too much of one is, you know, can upset the balance of things. I'm just talking on my behalf, but that's what I find. I think I've seen plenty of people who've, you know, got jobs in top orchestras and then decided to do yoga even. It's not the answer to have a full-time job in an orchestra. I mean, it'll keep you financially secured, maybe. It depends which orchestra you're talking about. But I think being self-employed, I think you've got to do a lot of work yourself to find the work that's going to support you, which it can be difficult. But I think if you keep trying, then it's just a matter of time, really. You know, you find your way.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So To tell you the truth, throughout my career, I've had times when I've really wished I've been a salaried player, and I've had times when I'm really grateful I'm freelance. So you'll never, the grass will always be greener, I think, whichever side you sit on. Like in a nutshell, I think if you're self-employed, that means you work for yourself. You're marketing a product, and that product is you. And so it's up to you to find work. It's up to you to manage your schedule. Like nobody's going to do it for you. It's up to you to organize your time. And it's up to you to make sure you're in the right time at the right place with the right instrument and music and clothes and whatever. Like nobody's going to organize you. But in return, you get complete freedom over your own schedule. So if you don't want to take something on, if you don't want to do Strauss waltzes ever because you play viola, you can say no to every Strauss waltz you ever offered. And if you want to go on holiday or see your brother get married, you don't have to ask anyone's permission to not work that week. On the flip side, if you have a job in an orchestra, every month somebody's going to give you a salary, whether you work or not. So, for example, during the pandemic, a lot of the orchestras now, okay, it's a bit tricky because some of them have been on furlough, but they've all had a monthly salary every single month, but most of them haven't worked for a lot of it. Yes. So that's the big difference in normal times, not pandemic times. If you have a job in an orchestra, that the advantages, definitely the advantages, somebody's going to look after you. You've got a line manager, you've got a manager. If you have a problem at work, you can go and speak to them and they'll help you sort it out. Like they have a responsibility to your welfare.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with something or you're not well, you'll still get paid and they'll help you. There's also lots of little benefits, like that you'll generally have an allowance for instruments, to look after your instrument, maybe for physio, those kind of expenses your employer will probably help you with. Not everywhere, but a lot of jobs. But the downside of having a salary is that if you want to take a week off because your best friend's getting married, you have to go and ask someone. Generally, you have to fill a form in, and you have to go and ask someone, can I have that week off? Because and this is the reason. And if they don't think it's a good enough reason, or they can't let you go that week, then tough.
Yeah.
So you're kind of at someone else's beck and call. You take your holidays when the schedule dictates that everyone takes their holidays. And if you have children, that might not be in your school holidays. And if you don't have children, it might be in the school holidays, but you don't want to go on holiday with everyone else's kids. So there's some of the downsides.
Yeah.
On the whole, I'd say in terms of relaxing in life, that your mortgage is going to get paid every month, it's really good to have a job. It's really good to have a regular income. And if you're someone that can't budget, it's really good to have a job.
Yeah.
Even if you are someone that can budget. But if you're freelance, you need to really be on top of your finances, because this is obviously another thing. When you have a job, somebody will, your tax, the money that you have to pay to the government and your national insurance comes off your money before you ever see it. So your employer sorts all of that out and you just get what money is yours to keep.
Yes.
When you're self-employed, everything you earn, you have to accept that you have to fill in a tax return at the end of the year, and you have to pay some of it to the government for inland revenue for your tax. So that means you have to keep back a certain percentage of it. Let's say roughly 25 to 30% is what you should be thinking of everything you earn.
Yeah.
Need to go in a savings account. That's pretty hard to do.
Yeah, exactly.
The hard thing, I think, especially when you're coming out of or still in music college or coming out, just that is money. It's really, really hard. It's people prey on that people at that stage of their careers. And the thing is, I think what we have to fight for is a bit more equality, and realizing that a lot of people at music college have careers. You actually have a career already. You probably have had a career since you were in your mid-teens. You know, the number of hours that you've put in and how hard you've worked and what you've achieved is proportional to somebody in their 30s in many other walks of life. So, you know, without sounding like, oh, musicians are so special, we've got unique, I'm sure, you know, that goes for the arts in general.
Yeah.
Why it's so colossally undervalued and why it's so dangerous for people to take on unpaid work and be made to feel like they have to take on unpaid work at that critical stage of leaving or just ending concept and going out into the world. And it's terrible, and it's got to change, because people really assume that you will do things for very little money. So that's something hopefully that can change as hopefully as we realize that legacy, which is a really hard thing to look in the face, the legacy of COVID and what it's meant to musicians not to be able to earn any money.
Good financial habits go along with habits like good time management and just personal sort of upkeep, like what it takes for you to feel good about you. That should include your finances. And again, like being willing to look at it straight on and say, okay, this is what I need for my rent, and this is what, you know, these are the categories I need, and knowing that you need to put a certain amount away, both for taxes and for the future, so that you have a cushion. It's difficult. It's difficult to say, no, I don't need to go out for pints tomorrow because I need to put 10% of what I have away. You know, but it's just good personal sort of financial hygiene.
Yeah.
This is a very difficult relationship we have with money and with asking for money, and with feeling that we are worth the ask. You know, that actually, you know, to hear you play, somebody should be paying money. And you know, the fact that you are a young professional means nothing different from if it was me or somebody older. You know, that there, it's a really, really hard thing for us to sort of push through that barrier of demanding. I think it's a tricky one, because obviously you want paid work, you want well-paid work, you want a balance of working with your peers, because that's very important, and but you also want to be working with established or more established groups, and that's a really interesting balance, because I think that for everybody, they have a kind of a point that they can reconcile how much free labor they're willing to offer, and how many favors they're willing to do, essentially. And you know, you're going to be doing that a lot for your peers, up to a point. And then the Aurora orchestras of this world and the Northern Chords take off and start paying, and you realize actually all along this was totally worth it. Yeah.
How do you decide what to say yes or no to?
So my quick answer is say yes to everything. Everything that fits within your diary and doesn't make you insane. Say yes to, because you never know what will lead to the next thing. And if you close yourself off to a possibility, you know, you might then miss out on 3 or 4 other things that would have, even though it wasn't like your dream job to start with, you know. But I think there's a flip side to that, and it has to do with working, like being paid and genuinely understanding the value of your work. And I think that there are times in which it's a good thing to say, yeah, I'd be happy to do that for you for nothing. Very rare. Because you wouldn't, I mean, people make the comparison, and I think it's fair. Like, you would never ask a plumber to come check out your plumbing problem as a, you know, well, we'll see, maybe the next problem that I have, if you do a good job on this one, the next problem, well, I mean, you just wouldn't do that. And this is something that, again, like the difference between how things are treated in this country, my experience is that people are quite reluctant to talk about money here up front. And I have certainly probably offended people and put my foot in it more than once by saying, well, you know, what does that pay? What is this job? Not because I'm going to say no because of the answer, but because I think it's fair to ask. And to expect to be paid for your time.
But when I first left college, I think my philosophy was say yes to everything, like anything really. Even down to saying yes to some unpaid stuff, or saying yes to really badly paid stuff, just because I felt like at the time, it was a good way of getting my face known.
Yeah.
And getting experience. And these days, I wouldn't say yes to half the stuff I said yes to then.
Okay.
I think on the whole, one of my friends once said to me, if you have trouble deciding whether to take a gig on, you either got to say, is it something I really want to do, or is it really well paid, or is it both?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't tick any of those boxes, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. There's got to be a reason why you want to do it, or it's got to be really well paid.
Yeah. How do you organise your schedule and avoid double bookings and that sort of thing?
I did have to decide between some work here or in Spain, and it was quite an easy decision in the end. I just sort of went with what my heart was saying, really. Sounds a bit cliche, but I was offered like about 6 months there, and I had quite a lot of work at the Opera House here, and I was thinking, well, I came back because I'd like to work at the Opera House here.
Yeah.
So I just kind of went with what, it was quite clear cut for me, really. But I mean, obviously there's going to be times where that certain offers might be more appealing than others, or you might have to balance, sort of weigh out what you think might be more beneficial to you in the long run, perhaps. I don't know. Doing the certain gig might mean you get asked there more in the future. I think if it's an established orchestra, then that sort of takes priority really over a gig.
Mm-hmm.
The trouble is when fixers and managers ring you up, they don't always tell you exactly what is involved and the dates and the fee.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing. You could say yes to something which is rubbish money and then get offered something like one day which clashes with it, which is amazing money. And you've got to balance these things out, and it's really, really tough. I think I'm starting to learn it's worth being cheeky when people ring you up and say, could you give me all the details for the date? You can give an excuse and say, I've got a couple of things in, I just want to see if they clash. And even ask, what's the fee? Because you do have to balance, as a freelancer, you do have to balance these things out. You can't, it's really tempting. And actually, when you're just starting, it's good to say yes to everything. If you can manage to wrangle it around. And then when you've worked with loads of different groups, you can kind of start to feel, well, I'm going to prioritize that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to prioritize that one over the other one. And if there's a clash that you might have to get out of something, as long as you don't do it all the time, most people are understanding with this.
What impact can maintaining contact have on finding work?
I think that kind of goes into the heart of what, whether you're freelancing or in a set job or even outside it, like in any career, it's the relationships that you develop with the people you're working with that are going to determine whether the work comes easily or not. And with freelancing, it can be as much about the after as the during, but it can definitely be about how easy you make it for fixers in advance.
Yeah.
So if you make their lives easier, they're going to be more likely to call on you.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is, I keep thinking about it as hygiene. I don't know why, but like responding to messages immediately, being very clear in your communications, not being flaky. If you say yes to something, you say yes to it.
Yeah.
And none of this is specific to music.
What advice can you give on doing and preparing for orchestral auditions?
I've been on orchestral audition panels. I do now wonder whether if you're not completely prepared, it might not be worth doing it. Because if you go in and do a bad audition, that can stay with you for a while. So be really thoroughly prepared, do your homework, all the excerpts, really listen to recordings. If you can get a recording of that orchestra doing it, absolutely brilliant. So you kind of know the right tempos, the right articulation. You'd be amazed how many people come in and play excerpts completely I've heard wrong keys in excerpts. if you can show that you can play things in slightly different styles as well, so you don't play a big Rachmaninoff symphony the same as you would play Mozart,
Yeah.
or Bach, or if you can show as many different qualities of your playing in the way that you approach the excerpts, absolutely brilliant. It shows that you're a really rounded musician, and it's someone that they would want to have in their section, so you're much more likely to get a trial.
Orchestral auditions, I think, are changing really drastically.
Okay.
So that's my advice is probably going to change quite drastically as well, because of course I think with playing behind screens and also doing digital or recorded auditions, I know that we're talking a lot about that now for in terms of equal opportunities and in terms of no discrimination. So I feel like that they're becoming more positive experience. That everything that's happening is trying to make it a less traumatic and a more fair and representative experience. So I feel like I've got good news, which is really good, which is unusual when it comes to auditions. But choosing one's solo repertoire a lot, and that hopefully is changing. I don't think that many people are asking for a sort of a set, the standard stuff. You can play more what appeals to you. As far as I can tell, most the thinking's becoming broader around it, which is great.
Yeah.
But I also think this the sending in a sound bite, even 2 minutes, 3 minutes of playing, I'm hoping that it will also make kind of getting in on the extra work scene easier, because that's the thing that orchestras have failed to do very well over the last few years. I've seen fewer and fewer extra work auditions. It's always like tagged on, or they're just getting people they know, and it's very, very hard to break in if you're a young person.
There's the in-between bit. The best option, I think, a lot of the time is 50% jobs, where you have a job with an orchestra, but you're not there, you're only there half the time. And some people on 50% jobs would say it's the best thing ever, and some people, I think, sometimes other orchestras assume you've got a job and won't ask you. So it's one, but I think that would be the dream. Now I've done what I've done for so long. If you had a 50% job, you've got that bit of security, but you have a little bit of freedom as well, and I think that would be a good thing.
The security of having a percentage job and then doing stuff outside it is probably, certainly to begin with, the perfect balance, because you've got that security. You have that amount of work on your schedule, but then you have the freedom to go and work with someone else, and that keeps you sane as well.
What other things can you do to supplement your income and add variety to your work?
If you can do various little things just so that you've got a steady income, like if you can do some teaching, or you can maybe run a quartet. I mean, once weddings start up again, to do like background music gigs. They seem like trivial things, but just that bit of money every so often is really, really helpful to just pay bills and pay rent and mortgages, and so if you've got that to fall back on, it means you don't have to take on absolutely every bit of work that you get offered. You can think, do you know what, I'm going to give myself off a few days there. I'm not going to take anything on that week. I'm going to have that as rest, or just consolidation time. And I know how hard that is to say no to stuff. But say no to it in the right way. It's like, oh, I'm really sorry. Don't say, nah, I don't fancy doing that. Say, I'm really sorry, I'm busy then. But thank you for asking. And, you know, always keep the door open.
Yeah.
And something has changed fundamentally in the last few years. And I now have, you know, hyper, super successful musician friends who are also yoga instructors, like for real. They do two jobs, you know, that's what they do. I know 3 who do that. That's a lot considering how many musicians, you know, that there'll be loads of them doing something else to do with music. So a therapy linked to music. So Alexander or Dalcroze Eurythmics, or, you know, some people so people often get to, you know, their mid-30s and kind of go, oh, is this what I'm going to be doing for the next, you know, how long, and then retrain. So I would suggest, rather than, you know, saying to you, you're going to take a year now and then you're going to go into the music profession, and you're going to be there like that for the, actually, do you know what, as a, you know, take this as an amazingly positive start, but keep reinventing yourself. You know, there's nothing to stop you. Your playing is not going to get worse. Nobody's going to forget about you. The world is small in a way that it's never been small before. You know, there's like this, there's Zoom, there's all sorts of things. And I really don't think anybody now would look at this and think it's anything other than an incredibly positive choice.
I think freelancers have been really creative, whereas, and obviously people in jobs have been really lucky because they've been looked after. But I know so many freelancers that have done really creative things, or like just like put themselves out there, organize like street concerts, or, you know, just try and really I don't know, I guess it's shown us how important it is to have other things you can do. That's the main thing I think everyone should take away from it.
Yes.
No one would ever have thought there'd be like 15 months with no work. No one would ever have thought it.
No.
So it has shown that it's really important to just have your fingers in different pies and be prepared to like do stuff yourself, I think.
Yeah.
You have to keep your skills in place.
Yeah.
And you have to play well and feel good about how you're playing. So making sure, like if you take a gig and it means that you really just don't have any practice time, that has to be finite.
Yeah. Okay.
And putting a value on your time, and a value on your energy, and a value on your product, who you are, because I think as a freelancer, I mean, it's the hardest thing to say, but you are a company. You are your own business. Your product. You employ yourself. You are a very precious commodity. You're the only one of you, and it's very easy to think, oh, I must just do everything and never have a day off, and it becomes almost a badge of honor, the kind of freelance crazy lifestyle, you know, going from one thing to another, keeping all whilst keeping your playing at a very, very high standard, because otherwise you won't get asked back. So I think the pressure can really take its toll, and knowing when to say no from a financial point of view, and also from a physical, emotional, mental point of view is the greatest thing to learn.
Yeah.
Try and always, no matter what you end up doing, if you end up freelancing or you end up in a full-time job, is to always give yourself either time off to work on your own playing, or do chamber music, or do things with other groups, just to keep your interest up and keep your passion for what you do alive. Because I can imagine it's really easy to just kind of go, you know, and just it's paying the bills, you know. But that's what music should be about. And I think it's really, really important for you to keep your passion.
Thank you all ever so much for sharing your experiences and for giving such invaluable advice. I really appreciate you having taken the time to talk with me. Thank you for watching.